Good evening, fight fans. This is the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Alternative commentary for Ryan Garcia versus Francisco Fonseca. Brought to you by the good people at DAZN, which, as we all know, rhymes with calzone.
Tell you what, find one other word. And just surprise the fans by using a different word next time to rhyme with.
I think people count on me to be consistent.
No.
I, of course, am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And that voice you hear, ever critical of me and always keeping me on my toes, is the host of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show on 411mania.com and Damn You Hollywood right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Ladies and gentlemen, good to his mother, Robert Winfree. How do you do, sir?
I am just one more sad, lonely person on Single Awareness Day.
What if I said, brought to you by DAZN? It rhymes with end zone. Is that better?
No, because now that's actually two words.
Brought to you by DAZN. It rhymes with ozone.
There you go.
All right, perfect. We can
Look,
move
if I can get you to stretch your vocabulary in a functional way once every 6 months, I consider my life as having been fulfilled.
All right. So yes, Ryan Garcia versus Francisco Fonseca. The night started off on the main card. I'll just run through the whole card up to this point. We had Evan Sanchez getting a TKO victory in round 2 over Daniel Evangelista. Bektimir Melukuziev had a round 1 KO over Oscar Cortez. Alejandro Reyes had a unanimous decision over Nelson Colon. Blair Cobbs had a split decision over Samuel Cote, 94-95, 96-93, and 96-93. At which point, and I don't know if they kept doing this the whole night, but I noticed that during this fight, the house music was all like WWE themes for some weird reason. Alexis Roca had a unanimous decision over Brad Solomon. Pretty clear victory for Mr. Roca. And then, just before our main event, your co-main, Jorge Linares, had a brutal 4th-round KO over Carlos Morales. What'd you think of that one?
It was a good finish for Linares, who I think he's had a fight since he got stopped by Lomachenko, but they're still relatively close together. It's within a fight or two that he suffered that knockout loss, well, TKO loss. So it was good to see him kind of right the ship.
Right. Ryan Garcia comes into this main event spot, brought to you by Golden Boy Promotions, with a 19-0 record and 16 KOs. He takes on the former world title challenger, as we said before, Francisco Fonseca, who's at 25-2-2 with 19 KOs. And allegedly, this represents a step up in class for Garcia, as the native of Nicaragua has only lost to defending world champions. It's what he hopes to accomplish before the end of 2020 that is so emboldened, or so CBSSports.com tells me.
Yeah, they're trying to make Garcia into something, and to his credit, he's a good-looking guy, undefeated. Again with Golden Boy, which is going to hurt him in some respects, trying to get into some of the bigger money fights, because a lot of them just don't do business from a political standpoint with DAZN for a variety of reasons, some of which are contractual and money-related. Funny, given that, boxers who want pay-per-view points and whatnot will not fight on a platform that does not have pay-per-view. Who'd have thought?
So let me ask you a quick question. Completely off topic and apropos of nothing. Do you think the WWE ends up licensing their pay-per-views to DAZN? Because that's been talked about lately.
They might. That would be an interesting decision by DAZN. which, let's be very clear, I think this is an important thing to understand about DAZN as a business venture. They don't want to they want to get into I shouldn't say real sports, bigger sports.
They want it. Look, they, like everybody else, they want content, exclusive content, that will draw people into subscribing to their application, period.
Like, they would like to get into football. Like, they're aiming for, again, big financial properties and, events. Again, they might do it with WWE, but there's a pretty serious risk there that if you go that route, you're going to forever kind of be stained by, as the not just the combat sports guys, but the sideshow combat sports guys.
Sure.
I mean, they've got like Jake and Logan Paul fighting on legitimate I'm not opposed to them doing freak show fights. There's a long, some would argue proud tradition, I know you would, of freak show appearances in combat sports. I mean, for God's sake, they would probably still have humans fighting bears or kangaroos if it were legal, if it would draw a crowd.
That was so funny because that's exactly what the first thing I thought of was when you were like, freak shows. I'm like, there's a proud tradition of fighting bears and kangaroos. Stop it.
Hey, that's why I'm saying, like, you want to do a one-off, like, say twice a year you do, a Logan Paul fight, sure. Putting one of the Paul brothers in the co-main event of a world title fight... Especially when the argument that, well, it draws more eyes to the sport and to the other people on the card doesn't hold water numerically.
All right. We can resume this later if Jesus Christ! Okay, so I need to say... So while we were talking, I figured, we've got time. It's a 12-round fight. We'll just catch up. So... a couple of exchanges.
Mostly jabs.
So there were a couple of exchanges, mostly jabs. Garcia nailed a right, then he nailed a right, then he murdered the man in the ring.
Yeah, Fonseca kept throwing his jab to the body without really setting it up, and you could see, leading up to this knockout, Garcia getting a decent enough read on like a pullback counter right. And then this time, instead of throwing the right, he just again finds a slightly better angle and just murders Fonseca with a left hook. This is going to accomplish what they want for Garcia. Again, they want to move him up. They want this guy to be a star. Now, Fonseca, again, is a bit of a step up in competition, certainly, but he's also a guy that is kind of, at this point in his career, you get the feeling he's going to lose these fights. He's there to lose these fights.
Speaking of the Paul brothers, they just shot both of them doing the oh my god face.
How nice of the Paul brothers to hold that reaction until the cameras were on.
You would.
I mean, look, my shots at them aside because I find them tedious human beings. At least you have to, to be intellectually honest, respect the hustle that those guys put in, because what they do is labor intensive, if nothing else.
Speaking of respect the hustle, here comes Oscar De La Hoya.
And nothing about that deserves respect.
So, this was fun.
At least it was quick. Again, right? This is again the designed outcome, and I don't mean to say that the fight was fixed, but you book a fight like this on a platform like this, hoping for an outcome like this, so you can take the guy you really want to push and go, yeah, look at that. Now, give us a title fight, and then you have to try and figure out which champion maybe is already like contracted to be on DAZN. Which champion you can maybe throw enough money at, which other promotional entity will be willing to maybe take a bit of a loss financially to be on that property, whether DAZN decides to stick with some of their business model. Like you mentioned, the big heavyweight thing. The big reason that we're like never really going to get the big like super tournament style between Joshua, Fury, and Wilder is that Joshua fights on DAZN.
Mm-hmm.
And both Fury and Wilder are contracted to different groups that operate mostly on pay-per-view. And just logistically and politically, it's not going to work. I mean, unless I suppose there's an outside chance that a certain Saudi prince might just throw enough money at one of them to compensate for it. But short of that, again, the politics of boxing being what they are, it's not going to happen. So, do you want to get Garcia a world title shot? The unfortunate reality for him, fighting at lightweight, that being 135-ish, those belts are held by people who either don't fight on DAZN or, in some cases, are just fighters they don't really want to match him up with. Lightweight as a title picture will become a little bit clearer a little later this year, assuming the fight that that they've announced they're working on goes through. That being pound for pound king and various lightweight champion and a few other weight classes. He might have surrendered a few of them below. Vasily Lomachenko versus a man who will not be around lightweight for much longer, given the way his body continues to develop, Teofimo Lopez Jr. And if that fight happens, again, they want it to happen. If they're able to make that fight is nothing but fire. That is a great fight. I mean, you've seen, Mark, I know you've seen some Lomachenko stuff, and I know you're a fan of it. You're a fan of boxing as a science to appreciate what Lomachenko does. If you get a little bit of time, look up Teofimo Lopez Jr. You will not be disappointed.
Okay. So, just to be clear, we've got a round 1 KO. The time isn't up yet, but who cares? It was within seconds. Round 1 KO.
It was about a minute, and I think the finish occurred with 1:40 left on the clock. So probably 1:20 or so for the official time.
All right. Well, that was a short night. But hey, I don't want to just put up a 10-minute boxing podcast. There was another show on tonight. There's a ShoBox card. It's Thomas Mattice versus Isaac Cruz. So we'll switch over to Showtime now and bring you commentary for that fight, Mattice versus Cruz, in just a moment. Okay, folks, we are back, and we're going to bring you Thomas Mattice, who is 15-1-1 with 11 KOs, versus Isaac Cruz, who is 18-1-1 with 14 KOs in a 10-round lightweight bout. Mattice is the WBO's 12th ranked boxer and is the A side, obviously, of this showcase fight on ShoBox. Cruz is ranked 7th by the IBF at 135 pounds.
Let's hope it's at least a more compelling fight in practice than our previous squash match, although considering it was set up by Golden Boy, who can be shocked at a lopsided booking decision.
That was rough, man. I mean, we can kind of chat about this now as we settle in and get ready for Thomas Mattice versus Isaac Cruz. That check left hook, it didn't just turn out his lights. I mean, he fell backwards like he'd been shot.
Yeah, he'd been getting a feel for some of the timing that. My apologies, I'm looking at a replay now. He'd been getting a feel for the way his opponent, whose name now escapes me, was
Fonseca.
Was going to the body, and Fonseca just he keeps dipping his head the same way too. Every time he's always dipping to his own left. He dips and he reaches and. Garcia just not only has his timing, he splits his timing with a really nice check left hook, and that's all she wrote.
Wow. It's, I'm so used to these long fights, these fights that at least go into the second half, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds, that when you have a first round knockout in your main event, it's, you and I have watched a lot of MMA. You certainly more than I have. The odd first round case, we have a joke about it. The first round finish club. It happens enough, and it happens regularly enough that it isn't. I mean, it's great when it happens because it's brutal, and why are we watching combat sports if we don't like some of the brutality? But it's not shocking You know, when you're dealing in head kicks and elbows, there's always a chance you're going to turn somebody's lights out within seconds into a fight. It's such a rarity in boxing that I'm stunned when it happens now.
Well, if you want to see more of it, watch more of Oscar De La Hoya's boys getting favorable matchups. It's more frequent.
Are you intimating that Oscar De La Hoya has a pen of pig hostages that he likes to serve up to the guys he's pushing?
Yes.
That's exactly what you're saying?
I'm happy to say it as such. Oscar De La Hoya has fighters that he likes and wants to turn into stars, and has a bunch of guys who are respectable cannon fodder.
Okay.
I mean, considering that's how his career was managed for a giant chunk of it, it should come as no surprise that he's willing to do that for others.
Yeah. Yeah, not for nothing, but...
I mean, it's not that the man wasn't a capable boxer. He certainly was. But let's not pretend that his career wasn't managed very carefully, too.
Well, I was going to say, if he found success with it, why would he not continue this if it worked for him and has worked for other fighters that he's managed?
No, the other fighters that he's managed thing is where it gets a little bit dicey, but
apparently it's been a while since I've used my Showtime Anytime app on my television, so watching it on my phone, here we go.
I was just going to say, it's a little bit dicey how many genuine stars Golden Boy has created apart from Canelo, who also takes a giant massaging from the judges.
That was one of the things they talked about tonight during that fight, was how I guess they're trying to find a fight for Canelo in May, and the rumor was Billy Joe Saunders, which I thought was in the bag, but I guess that's not yet a thing. And somebody else, they named another person, and then the big takeaway was nobody wants to fight Canelo.
Yeah, because he's just that scary.
Well,
and hang on. In all fairness, again, the man is certainly capable of sending you to the land of ghosts and shadows, as the saying goes. Like, I don't mean to intimate that Canelo's not a good boxer. He is.
Sure.
But Canelo is also very vocally not entertaining a third fight with Gennady Golovkin, despite being on the gift end of 2 decisions. He doesn't want any more of that, and despite the fact that it is contractually obligated to DAZN to have a third fight between the two on that platform, they're still hashing some of that stuff out.
My God, Thomas Mattice's reach is 73 inches. Cruz was 62 and a half.
My reach, for the record, my reach is about 74-ish. I stand about 6'1".
Uh-huh.
So for these guys at lightweight, so 135 pounds, to have a reach comparable with mine when I'm, there's a lot. Well, I mean, you guys talked about on your heavyweight retrospective, Sonny Liston, who, despite being shorter than me, actually, again a little under 6 feet tall, had a reach of 84 some odd inches.
And again, I say the man was a moose. And here we go. I'm going to start calling this one because I made the mistake of not doing that in the last one, and it was over before I said anything. Good grief.
Well, and I mean, in all fairness to the other fight, there was nothing really to talk about up until the left hook.
Yeah. So Mattice comes out, bit of a feeling out process. He's using a bit of
He's using a bit of the Philly shell already. The lead hand being low, looking to come up, kind of flick the jab out, disrupt timing and rhythm. Cruz walking forward, digging to the body early.
Yep. Cruz wasn't the first to get off, and Mattice hit him a few times, but he stepped in there and he started going to the body pretty early, and he just snuck in a nice right to the face. Cruz did.
Yeah, Mattice trying to fight smart, fight agile, move around the ring. Good defense. Maybe kind of try to extend this, let Cruz burn himself out a little bit early. Cruz, for his part, looking to walk him down and is looking to invest in the body early, and potentially start working upstairs as time goes on.
Cruz is doing a lot of body work in this first round. and he's also swinging some really fast hooks. Those look like those are stinging.
Yeah, his body work's about, I think he's hovering around, if I had to guess, the 50 to 40% accuracy on his body work. Mattice is doing a really good job of keeping at least one arm down, trying to take those on kind of the elbow or the arm instead of letting them get all the way through.
Well, to Cruz's credit, and he could get knocked out, I guess, at any time, I suppose, given how things are going. But I have to say, Cruz is not letting Mattice get away with much. He is firing a lot of hooks off, fighting very aggressively. And now Mattice, as within seconds of each other, tied up twice. I'm wondering if Mattice doesn't really like what he's getting from Cruz and is starting to think, oh, maybe this is not a guy I want to fight in a phone booth with. Some of
that also might wind up being a game plan, try to tire his arms out a little bit. Mm-hmm. That said, if that is the plan, he is not doing it correctly. If for the record, if that is your plan, to use the clinch to kind of tire your opponent down, to wear on them a little bit, you want to get your weight on their arms so they're carrying you. When he's clinched thus far, he's gone for, in wrestling or grappling parlance, the double underhooks.
Yeah.
And that is not really the best way to kind of wear your opponent's arms out. You need that because there's no weight on their arms.
They'll probably give that first round to Mattice, though I will tell you, he changed game plans midway through that round. He did not like it and hit by Cruz. And Cruz, John Moore and I have talked about this in the last couple of boxing matches we've done, where the B side of the card just either comes on late or doesn't come on at all, and kind of just sits there and plays, the role of the meat, as the A side pounds on him for upwards of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds. Unless they quit on the stool. In this one, even though it's a showcase fight for Mattice, Cruz is not giving him much room to show off. I mean, he's really taken the fight to Mattice.
Yeah, I actually would kind of lean towards giving Cruz that round if we're talking about overall efficacy and, work rate, blows landed, effectiveness of blows landed, etc. I think that was Cruz's round. Not that he blew Mattice out of the water, but I think that was a fairly clear round for Cruz.
I'll tell you what, because I have the volume down as we do these commentaries, I don't know what was said, but if I'm in Matisse's corner, I'm like, hey, stupid, you've got a really long reach. Fight behind it. Be content to jab. Circle away from this guy. Now they're clinched, and Cruz is battering him from either side of the head in the clinch.
Well, you could see Mattice come out in the second round and look to do that, look to fight longer. Unfortunately, his jab thus far has been more of the flicking variety, which is a perfectly valid thing to use to score. It's good for swelling up your opponent's eyes. It's really not that good at dissuading your opponent from kind of charging into you. You got to put some mustard behind that punch if you want to stand your opponent up or really kind of get something in their way when they're looking to close distance.
And here's the fun thing about this fight. Cruz, being the much shorter fighter, much stockier, is ducking under those jabs and fighting his way into the body. Mattice hates it. He's running for his life here.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Mattice, his generalized ring craft thus far is, I wouldn't say, like it's terrible, but he's not the superior ring general in that he can overcome the ring cutting and the forward pressure that Cruz has been putting on him thus far. And in fairness, Cruz is good at this. So you can see thus far even. He's really good about cutting you off, about staying in your face. It would take some really educated feet and generalship to kind of get away from that. And Mattice just doesn't seem to have that level of sophistication just yet.
Cruz just landed a double jab right into Matisse's face, and he followed up with some wicked body work.
Yeah, he is really investing in body work early. And the big question, if you're, Cruz, is he's throwing heavy.
Yeah.
Is this a sustainable pace for him? Which is,
he
again,
might
is
be
the real
to
question.
End this early is the issue here.
Well, he can. I mean, he can certainly try. Again, the question becomes if you don't. If you empty the gas tank in the first 4 to 5 rounds of a 10-round fight, and then you don't have anything left for the back half, what happens?
You're gonna, if you don't get outpointed, you're gonna get knocked out. Would you say Cruz is fighting Mexican style?
Yes. Forward pressure, in your face, gloves high, biting down on the old mouthpiece. There's elements of what he's doing that are. I shouldn't say more sophisticated. His wrinkle to the quote-unquote Mexican style is a lot of body work, which, don't get me wrong, the Mexican style does benefit from heavily, but there's a fair number of guys who fight in that style who are more headhunters as well. So I've got Cruz 2-0 so far in terms of rounds.
Yeah, I would. Definitely that last round. I would not disagree with you. Nor would I fight you on the first round. I just know that on a lot of these cards, the judges tend to favor the A side when the A side is active. I mean, obviously you can't when they're just outright losing, but we begin here, and Cruz comes forward again in round 3. And the two of them, it looked like Cruz was going to spear Mattice through the ropes.
Cruz has zero respect for Matisse's punching power at this point. Anytime you see somebody coming forward this doggedly, his hands are still up the way they should be, but he's not worried about the punching power coming back at him. So he feels relatively safe coming forward, smothering whatever offense Mattice does try to throw at him, and then making this a close proximity, slightly ugly fight. And that's been working for him so far. The question is, again, can he maintain this pace? And if Mattice can find a couple of adjustments, because he's still just kind of flicking the jab out. And if you want to stop somebody advancing with the jab, it can't just be a flicking kind of like almost arm punch. You got to put some weight behind it. That said, Mattice has started to find his right on occasion. He's not throwing it a lot, but when he has thrown it thus far, it's been able to kind of find the target.
Total punches, 18 of 117 for Mattice. It was like 53 out of, I think, 189 for Cruz. Cruz actually has a higher percentage of landed punches.
Doesn't surprise me. He's also got, again, the much higher number thrown.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what, Mattice is getting beat up this round, as he was in the last one. But when I say that, I'm trying to also say that he's not getting nearly as much offense as he was. At this point, there's a lot of trying to circle away and cover up, and he can't get Cruz off of him. Like, the only time Cruz stops is when the referee separates them. Big right hook from Cruz.
Matisse has been able to kind of get away a little bit better this round. His circling's been a little better. Cruz's his offensive footwork has not quite been what it was in the previous round. So, possibly a sign of his legs maybe not being all the way under him anymore.
I just saw him Cruz take a deep breath against the ropes. So I'm wondering, as we've been talking, and as you said before, though you were thinking this was going to happen a little bit later on in the fight, I'm wondering if he's starting to blow his gas tank. Like he just can't, like he thought he could put this guy away within, 2 rounds, or he would break him early, and then he'd have more opportunities, and he wouldn't necessarily have to go as hard. But I'm starting to wonder if he's getting tired.
Matisse already starting to turn things around. Cruz now the one on the ropes, and he's still swinging to the body, but part of the reason that hasn't necessarily had the desired effect has been Matisse's arms being tight to kind of the front of his ribs. To the extent that those body shots have landed, they've landed almost like around, kind of not on the kidneys, but towards the back half of the ribs. And that doesn't really, that still sucks. Like, getting hit in the kidney is a really unpleasant experience. I think the way I best heard it described was, if getting hit in the liver is like getting hit in your soul, getting hit in the kidney is like getting hit in your soul's dick. Like it is really unpleasant. But as unpleasant as that is, and as much like long-term damage as that can do to your health, it doesn't necessarily have the same wind sapping abilities if you don't get the muscles to spasm up, kind of thing. So you go to the body, into the front, into the ribs, into the diaphragm to try and fatigue the lungs. And getting around to the other side, it's a viable tactic, but it doesn't bear the same fruit. Whereas Mattice, we see some replays, his body shots have been going where he wants them to go.
So we are in round 4 here.
For the record, still I think a third round for Cruz, but Mattice had moments there, and if Cruz doesn't catch a second wind, he's starting to just back up and get jabbed a little bit at this point.
So Mattice, a bit more on his bicycle now. Some pretty dynamic footwork. He's bouncy. Not quite. I mean, we're only less than a minute into this 4th round, but I don't see Cruz rushing forward like he was. I wonder if his corner told him, all right, settle down, big boy. Stop running after the guy. If
his corner didn't, it's you'd like to think as a fighter has a high enough IQ to kind of make that read themselves. Like, okay, I came out really hard, couldn't get him out of there. Let's slow things down. Let's still be active, but let's be a little safer. Let's get our wind back, get our legs back under us, and then resume later. Good.
Steve Farhood gave the first 2 rounds to Cruz and that last round to Mattice.
I can see an argument for Mattice in the third. Again, he certainly had moments.
Yeah, I like what Matisse is doing now. He's circling. He's hitting and running. He's staying away. He's using his jab. I said from the start, don't think you're just going to stand and punch with this guy. He has your number. So make him, you're so much taller. Your gait's going to be so much wider and longer. Make the shorter fighter, whose gait is obviously, gait is a lot smaller. Make him come after you. Tire him out.
Matisse's clinching circumstances in this round have been more to his favor as well. You've seen him get on top of the arms a little bit more, occasionally lean, and you're not... Bear in mind, this is technically against the rules, but I can't really remember the last time I saw a point deducted for it. Leaning a little bit on the back of the head and the upper shoulders when Cruz comes in low. So that's the kind of thing you want to do if you're going to clinch to wear your opponent out. Get your weight on them. Make them deal with it.
Cruz starting to come on in this round. As I was talking about, I was liking Matisse's footwork and fighting behind the jab and, circling. Cruz, as that all was happening, Cruz started to turn it on and start coming after him, and he ends the round with a big right hook.
Probably another round for Mattice, all things considered, because he controlled the vast majority of that.
Yeah, Cruz only came on at the end.
Cruz, and that right hook didn't even really land all that well. It doesn't seem to have. Matisse shoulder rolled with it, I think. But that said, Cruz did seem to find his legs again towards the end of that round. So Matisse might be in for a long rounds 5 and 6.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I'm Cruz, I'm fighting like this is the last round. I'm coming out swinging.
I fully expect him to, again, come out and... Because that's when he had his best moments, was when he was able to kind of put that kind of a pace onto his opponent, onto Matisse. And even though not all of it was, the most effective stuff, if Matisse is just covering up and you're landing, you're winning.
Yep. And as we talk about it, we start round 5, and out comes Cruz, swinging to the body again. And now he is starting to, if you'll notice, he's starting to end combinations with sort of looping right hook. He's looking to take Matisse's head off.
Yeah, he really... I don't know if he doesn't think he has the gas for, the full 10 rounds, or if he just went so hard early that he now knows, like, okay, I've got 2 rounds in me, and that's kind of going to be it as far as what I can offer. He's really coming after it again.
I'm wondering if that was the strategy all along, was go 2 rounds, take a round off, go another 2 rounds. I mean, you win more, you win 2, you lose 1, and you keep up that pattern, you're going to win on points.
That is true. I mean, look, you only have to win 1 more round than the other guy, and you can win that, and the only thing you need to win that 1 round is 1 more punch, if you want to get really technical. That's kind of that's how Floyd Mayweather operated for a chunk of his career. I don't need all 12 rounds, I need 7. And I don't need to beat you by giant numbers in those 7 rounds. I only have to beat you by 2 or 3 each time. And hey, guess who wins? The raw arithmetic of combat sports as they are currently propagated. That's the wrong word.
I was going to say math, ladies and gentlemen.
It's much as I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination. If you're going to be in combat sports, you better know some of it.
Before you lose it by being punched in the head. And I'll tell you what, they're going punch for punch right now. They're just standing in the middle of the ring, which I don't love for Mattice. It's just
unless he's not worried about the 1-punch power, in which case
he should be.
I mean, he's the one who's been feeling the punches. If he's not worried about it, then, maybe he's kind of inducing Cruz to exhaust himself going for it. And Mattice has been sneaking in body work now. He seems to have a little bit better feel for the range when they're at distance. He's been avoiding that left hook from Cruz a lot more consistently this round. Nice right uppercut, right cross.
Yeah, I was going to say, he took a mean uppercut there from Cruz against the ropes.
He landed prior to that, so it's kind of a near thing in some respects. So, again, if Matisse's plan is to kind of induce this kind of brawl because he's not as concerned about the raw punching power, it's not the best strategy in the world, but it has proven historically to work if you've got, more wind than the other guy.
So, 8% of jabs versus 15% for Cruz, 45 power punches to 33 for Mattice, and total punches we have 20 to 27 for Cruz. Body shots landed 12 for Mattice and 36 for Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz has really gone after the body again. How much that has been effective is somewhat up for debate relative to Mattice. Most of Matisse's body shots have been unblocked.
Mattice seen in the corner breathing with his mouth wide open.
This has been a highly paced fight, even for guys at 135, which is, a division more known for pace and technique. This is a very high paced fight. And if you're going to breathe heavy between rounds.
Mattice still doing a fair amount of moving around the ring, rather. Cruz just looking for his spot to go roadhouse on him again. Yep. Series of hooks to the body, goes to the head with an uppercut, and they are clinched again.
I do not envy Mattice, whether he wins or loses. That man's going to have some very odd bodily functions for the next few days after this fight. He has taken, especially Cruz's right, it is constantly sneaking around, again, like towards the kidney area. I don't think they've been full on, kidney punches, but they're around towards the other half of the body like that. Those are not good, and those can result, again, like you wind up. Nice right by Mattice as Cruz was coming in there. He's found some spots.
Ooh. Just doubling and tripling up on those lefts. Going to the head and body. I mean, he threw just a slew of punches there with just his left hand, and he went both to the head and body. Mattice took some clean punches.
Yeah, his head movement or even just, his trunk in general has just kind of fallen apart a little bit at this point. He's not getting down behind his shoulder when Cruz tries to jab him along the ropes. If you want to slip that punch with that kind of, I think it's called the Philly shell, you've got to get down behind your shoulder and move your head. That's how that works. If you don't, it just doesn't work.
Nice elbow to the neck there, Cruz.
Considering how Mattice keeps trying to clinch up with him, that Mattice is actually making that nearly unavoidable.
We are down to less than a minute here, and this has been mostly Cruz so far in round 6.
Yeah, he fell off a little bit in that third, but in the fourth as well. But rounds 5 and 6, he's started to come back on, and his striking in the clinch. Cruz's has been a real difference maker, and this is one of those things that you have to really be paying attention to the official, because if the official says break and you're still punching, that's against the rules and can get you in a lot of trouble. If the official is saying fight out of it, finding spots to strike in those positions, that kind of infighting and clinch work, is a big deal. I mean, that's largely what led to Andy Ruiz beating Anthony Joshua, was just finding spots on clinch breaks where Joshua's so used to being broken by the official and not having to worry about protecting himself that when the clinch is voluntarily being broken, he can punch you there. Cruz ended that round with a really nice flurry, landed a clean left hook.
So it's 4 rounds to 2 for Cruz right now, and we're going into round 7 of 10. So I would tell you that Mattice really can't afford to lose these next 3 rounds.
Probably not. For the record, I agree with that score of 4-2. Possibly, judging being what it is, and we've seen some doozies of decisions over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Some really, really bad ones, actually. Who knows for sure, but I have Cruz ahead again, 4-2. So yeah, Mattice really can't afford to give up too many more rounds here. That said, if Cruz holds to the pattern we're kind of expecting him to, I expect him to take this round off and then come back stronger in 8 and 9.
What I'd like
Alternatively, he keeps sprinting for another 2 rounds and then takes the last 2 off and just hopes not to get finished.
Well, for Mattice, for him to turn this around, and as we see Steve Farhood's card come up, he's got it first 2 for Cruz, he's got the next 3 for Mattice, and then round 6 for...
Okay, so he gave...
He gave 3, 4, and 5.
Because I think we gave...
Mattice.
Because we gave 3 to Cruz, didn't we?
No, we gave 3 to Mattice.
So so was it 5 then?
It was we went 2 for Cruz, then the next 2 for Mattice, and then the last 2 for Cruz.
Okay. Yeah, it would have been round 5 that we went for Cruz when Steve Farhood didn't. Well, and that should tell you a little something about, again, that round in particular. If this comes down to the scoring of round 5, it's not like Cruz had a hugely overwhelming advantage in that round.
I think what Mattice really...
Nice right uppercut from Cruz. But Mattice counters.
I'd like to see Mattice cover up a little bit more. You know that this guy's going to be coming in. Go the Canelo Alvarez route when he fought the last light heavyweight fight that he fought.
Kovalev.
Thank you, Kovalev. I wanted to say Lomachenko, and I'm like, I know that's not right. Kovalev.
Yeah, that's not a fight that will ever happen. The size disparity is too great.
What I'd like to see Mattice do is start covering up. Invite Cruz in, cover up, let him punch into his guard, and then return fire. Start throwing your combinations after Cruz throws his.
Good left from Cruz there. And Mattice on the ropes. Mattice had been doing pretty well in this round, prior to that flurry. So the onus is now on him to take it back, because all other things being equal, that probably could win Cruz this round.
Big right from Cruz. Oh, that's not a good look for Mattice. Mattice dove into the ropes and threw his arm over there and covered up. Who are you, Floyd Patterson? Knock it off.
Yeah, he is. He wishes. Despite the size disparity, he got hurt bad by that right, man.
Yeah,
you were not kidding. The bell probably saved Mattice there.
Yeah, no,
That's how bad that was.
But I made the Floyd Patterson joke, one, because it's fresh in my mind, and two, because he was looking to get I once made a joke about the tall but tiny Asian woman who fought Cyborg, who, when Cyborg hit her, looked like she was trying to run out of the cage. And he gets hit by Cruz. He almost turns and throws his body and head over the ropes to get away. Yeah, look at
that was a good left to kind of start that whole combination off. More body work.
Just as that round was ending, he turned and threw his body over the ropes to get away.
Yeah, he was not in a good, that overhand right, man. He was doing the funky chicken. His legs are not there.
Well, if you're Cruz, and this is round 8,
he's not all the way back yet. You do not give him time to recover.
No, go at him roadhouse.
You take the first 90 seconds of this round, and you don't give that man time to keep getting his legs back under him. He was hurt badly.
Oh, look at that left. That left sent Mattice walking backwards, and he just dropped his whole guard.
Mattice is mentally out of this fight at the moment, and with only the rest of this round and then potentially 2 more.
And this round is young, man. We've got 2 minutes left.
Yeah. His corner's going to have to do something to try and get him back into this fight between rounds, because he is checked out at the moment. Everything he's doing right now is his legs are a little more under him at this point, but he's not moving well. He's not wobbly, but he's not moving. So if he makes it out of this round, his corner has to get him back into this fight somehow mentally, because he is kind of checked out. He's going through the motions physically, but he is not all the way there.
No, sir. Here comes Cruz again. He ducks under a jab. And you talked before about the jab he's just kind of flicking it out there. There's no power behind it. He's just sort of sticking it in Cruz's face. And Cruz gives no care at all about those jabs.
He's also got his head down. He's taking a lot of them on the top of the head, which is more dangerous to the other guy's hand than it is to your chin. And Mattice has never adjusted. He's never thrown that jab more to the chest. He's never put any real mustard behind it. You want to stop a guy coming in on you like that? You've got that jab can't be a flicking, cutting, swelling disruptor. It's got to be like the old adage of driving a railroad spike. That's what you got to do to get that guy to back off.
Yes, you have to throw an actual punch, not a stiff arm.
Matisse's legs are not all the way there again. And Cruz's hooks are finding their way around his guard more now.
I'll tell you what, if you're Matisse's people and you're Showtime and you're like, well, this is a showcase fight for our A side, this is not going the way anybody planned.
Apart from Cruz in his corner, who continues to just beat up the body.
At this point, and I'm only saying this based on what's happened in the fight and no other reason. I'm rooting for Cruz here. He's really put the work in, and I like a good spoiler every once in a while, and a good upsetting of the apple cart. I'll be curious to see on the blogs and podcasts and traditional media what the headline on this fight is. To
the extent that anyone's watching it, at least. look, almost all the discussion you're going to see tomorrow in the boxing, like blogosphere, for want of a better phrase, is going to be about
how they had to carry
your boy and mine, Ryan Garcia, and his picture-perfect check left hook.
Yes, as they carried Fonseca out on a spike, on a stick like a pig. Come on, let's go. I think like Eric Idle walked by and yelled out, "Bring out your dead."
It is entirely possible. But yeah, Cruz is absolutely getting after it. He is as game as they come.
He's not slowing down. He just charged that Mattice. We are in round 9. Now, see, Cruz is doing what I think Mattice is doing. He's covering up his face. He's got his guard out front. He lets Mattice throw a combination or a series of punches, and then he counters.
Yeah, he's really fallen into the rhythm and style of Cruz rather than trying to implement his game plan at this point. Which is a dubious recipe for success at best. Considering he has not really shown the aptitude for kind of the infighting and clinch fighting that Cruz has.
Apparently, Mattice has never gone the distance before.
Keeps up at this pace, he won't hear either.
Well, he's never gone to round 9, I should say. I'm sure he's gone the distance in 4 and 6 round fights.
Most certainly. It's just easier to go the distance there. But yeah, at this rate, he might not see the scorecards for this fight. He is coming a little bit more on now at this point, but
total punches 85 of 462, 177 out of 5 something there for Cruz.
That, again, that's not the craziest punch count you'll ever see, but that's still extremely high. I mean, again, the craziest punch count you'll see will probably come from Leo Santa Cruz, who seems to average 100 punches a round, as a matter of course. Because that man is a freak.
There is something to be said for dealing with high volume, even if not everything thrown is, A hits the target, B has a lot of power behind it. Just eventually you just get tired of being hit.
There's a somewhat famous Napoleon quote that, while he was using it in military terms, does still apply to striking combat sports in the sense the quote is, quantity has a quality all its own. And he was correct when it came to the military, and it is still an applicable sentiment to boxing or kickboxing or, again, any of the combative sports.
Well, you've only got 3 minutes to make an impact, man. You throw as much as your heart can take. Ooh, good left there from Cruz to Mattice as he goes careening off the ropes.
Mattice hit a pretty good pullback right before that. Matisse's had a lot more success this round. He seems to kind of be back into things.
All right.
Apart from that left hook that... Well, he'd been avoiding that left all round, and then, unfortunately, just kind of ate that one.
I'm curious to see if they show Farhad's scorecards after this.
Because, I'm actually leaning towards Mattice for round 9.
Overall, though, I think Cruz still has the lead, doesn't he?
I think that would be either 5-4 or 6-3 for Cruz going into the 10th. I think my scorecard would be 6-3.
Well, Mattice has to win this by knockout then.
He could win the last round and take the draw, potentially. I don't think we're looking at any 10-8s.
Watch it end in a split draw.
I'd rather just a straight draw than a split draw because I'm not really sure you could get around to scoring the fight from Mattice. I just don't think he's won 6 or more rounds.
What if it's a split draw for Canelo?
Well, sure. That's already been phoned. That's already in the mail. That scorecard has already been sent.
And not split draw. That doesn't make any sense. Split decision. That's what I meant to say.
Well, you can have a split draw.
You can, but not in favor of one guy. the draw. See?
That's why I said I'd rather a straight draw than a split draw, because I don't think you can score 6 rounds for Mattice. I mean, if this goes split decision for him, unless he has a really big 10th, I'm not seeing mathematically how he could have won a majority of rounds. At best, he'll have won 5.
Cruz,
we might get as a majority draw is more likely.
I'd like to see Cruz, and I'm sure so would he. I'd like to see him get a knockdown here and definitively put an end on this fight. I mean, it'd be nice if he also got a knockout, but if we're gonna have to go to the scorecards, I'd like to see one of these guys hit the canvas. Oh, big left there from Mattice, and Cruz had to shake it off. Shake it off.
Ask and you shall receive, I guess.
Yeah, that one knocked him cross-eyed.
Yeah, Mattice this round is moving quite well, and Cruz isn't really closing distance the same way. He's getting about halfway there instead of getting all the way into the pocket. And Matisse's legs are under him at this point, and Cruz is fighting on autopilot.
Hooked the lower body there from Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz has been digging to the body all fight. And again, credit to Matisse's defense that it hasn't had a more definitive impact on things.
We are less than a minute here, almost 30 seconds to go. All right, one of these guys needs to hit the gas pedal.
To the extent that they can. I mean, again, this has been a very high-paced fight.
Oh, yeah, no, this has been a fun fight. This has been a high-paced fight, a lot of action going on. But, the rubber has met the road. You want to put an exclamation point on the round, dig deep.
Well, especially if you're Cruz and you got, your balance went for a second or two there after that left. You got to do something to take it back if you're going to.
I think we're just about done here. Yep. Nope. Yes. Yes. All right. And that's the fight so far. And we'll go to the judges' scorecards.
So I think my final score would probably be... it would probably be 6-4 for Cruz. That or a 5-5.
Yeah, I'm leaning 5-5 right now because if we're going off Steve Farhood's scorecards, he had I believe it was 3-3 going into the 7th, and I know I gave the last 2 rounds to Mattice.
Well, and I think Cruz pretty clearly took 7 and 8 too. So
right, that's what I'm saying. I think this is going to end up being a draw.
And to be fair, I don't think you can score that fight again round by round for Mattice. So Mattice better be hoping for a draw. That's really the best outcome for him. As far as I see it, I think that's the best he can hope for.
Maybe one of the judges also gave sort of 6-4. And this is entirely possible. It's 10-0 for Mattice because boxing.
Yep. I wish that weren't true, but it is.
It's all right.
I mean, look, if you're a longtime fan of boxing, you have just made your peace with the corruption that has always been there.
So I know you're covering UFC tomorrow, and you have a chance to plug that in just a second. But I mean, if you're really interested, and your UFC fights end early, you can always watch Hector Lombard in bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah. You know how many things I'd rather do than that?
Hit yourself in the big toe with a hammer?
It depends on the size of the hammer.
I bet Hector Lombard kicks ass tomorrow night.
Who's he fighting?
God, you would ask me that.
Yes, I would.
All right.
Is it Chris Lieben?
No, it's not Chris Lieben, but that'd be amazing.
It would be terrible. Not amazing.
All right.
Judge David Braslow scores it 95-95, even a draw.
Yep.
Okay, that's what we had.
Judges Adam Frisha and Steve Weisfeld
Oh, we have a majority decision then.
In favor of your winner by majority decision, Isaac Cruz.
All right. Yay for boxing.
You know what? Good. Those are the. Hey, they didn't screw the guy who came in and numerically won the fight.
Yeah. Look, man, Isaac Cruz, you came here on the B side of a showcase fight, and you proved your mettle, and you didn't let this guy walk all over you, and you came to fight. So that's all I ask of my fighters. And like I said, I like a good spoiler. I think Mattice goes, you guys go back to his camp, go back to the gym, and rethink some things. But Isaac Cruz, on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, you're my hero.
Hero is a very short
human
being.
I've had weirder heroes in my life.
Yeah, you're still rooting for old man Goldberg to do stuff.
It's going to be amazing when he becomes WWE Universe Champion.
Look, I've maintained there is only one acceptable way for that match to go. It's for Goldberg to hit 6 spears, the Fiend no-sells all of them, mandible claw, wins, we're done. The only alternative that I would accept is 5 spears and a jackhammer, all of which the Fiend no-sells, mandible claw, and we're done.
Terrific. All right, folks. So kind of a weird doubleheader there. We did the Mattice Cruz card. We did the Ryan Garcia, Francisco Fonseca, all of 1 minute of that. We hope you enjoyed our double coverage of our guerrilla double coverage of boxing tonight. Tomorrow, myself and John War will be covering the fight on Fox. Caleb Plant versus what's his first name there? Caleb Plant versus Vincent Feigenbutts. Feigenbutts. You get the Feigenbutts out of here, you Robert Winfree, you. And speaking of Robert Winfree, he'll be doing coverage, and you can join him on 411mania.com for Anderson versus Blachowicz.
Wow. Wow.
Blachowicz.
Your inability to pronounce even remotely ethnic names will never not amuse me.
Victor Yaw. Blachowicz.
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 You Philistine.
Anderson.
Okay, now you're just that substitute teacher played by Key from that. You've seen that skit, right?
You know what I keep thinking of all day today was the bit from Family Guy where they do the 3 directors, and Peter's boss, who I think was played by Carrie Fisher, walks in and says, "Here's Christoph Waltz to fire you," in a weird voice. "You're fired." And then on the 16th, we've got NXT TakeOver. We'll be reviewing that, the Podsman and I, on Tuesday, February 18th. And so that's our sports coverage over the next couple of days. We've got Pat and I did...
Professional wrestling is not a sport.
That's our combat sports and wrestling coverage for the next couple of days. Pat and I did the next chapter of heavyweight boxing. We did Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson. And a week from tonight, myself, John War, and Pat Mullen will be doing a preview of Wilder Fury 2, and then we'll have the Wilder Fury 2 card proper on the 22nd. We've also got some Birds of Prey up stuff for you. We've got the Birds of Prey movie, this television show from 2000, and the comic book that was slapped together by some low-paid editor at DC Comics. All right, do your plugs real quick, and let's get out of here.
You already mentioned a few of my things. You can find me Saturday covering UFC on ESPN Plus 25. It's not a good card.
Jesus Christ.
Look, you don't come to me to be a shill. You come to me for candor.
It's true.
If I don't think it's a good card, I'm going to say I don't think it's a good card. This is not a good card. Your main event is the aforementioned Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. It's a rematch. Their first fight was not all that good. Now it's going to be 5 rounds. Your co-main event is Diego Sanchez and the absurd human being Michel Pereira, who I swear this is a real thing, performed a back handspring attack in his last fight.
That's amazing.
En route to gassing himself out in about 90 seconds and then losing to a man who fights 2 weight classes below him. Because lion salts or backflips into double stomps on a grounded opponent are just not practical. He'll be fighting Diego Sanchez, the only human being potentially more absurd. Although in Sanchez's case, it's due to giant head trauma. His last lone brain cell being, that episode of The Twilight Zone. Finally have time to read when he's all alone and then he breaks his glasses.
There was still time. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's Diego Sanchez's last brain cell. It's just not a good card. Ray Borg missed weight again. For some reason, Jim Miller's on the prelims, as is the actual best fight on this entire card, a bantamweight fight between John Dodson and Nathaniel Wood. This entire card is constructed backwards. It's taking place in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, which probably deserves better. And, yeah, I'm going to be covering it, but I am not excited about this on paper. That said, it could always be great in practice, and that's what I hope for. Sunday on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, we will be reviewing that event. We'll be previewing the one next week, which is a much better event. Although for some reason we still can't have flyweights on the main card, despite this being in New Zealand and Kai Kara France being a native Kiwi. And fighting Tyson Nam, who comes from that same... Who's putting these together? You gotta have Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus the Combat Wombat Ben Sassoli on the main card.
The what?
Did you not see this fight, sir? Okay, hold on.
Wait. Combat Wombat?
Yes, Ben Sassoli. This, I believe he is from New Zealand. He was brought in to lose to Greg Hardy in Hardy's last fight. Would not be knocked out, and even wins the third round of that fight. With this terrible mullet, awful tattoos, and a nickname like the Combat Wombat. He then walks away from that fight with a no contest because Greg Hardy used an inhaler between rounds 2 and 3.
Jesus Christ.
I cannot take this sport seriously half the time. It's just too crazy. But yeah, so those guys can all be on the main card. But one of the better flyweight prospects in the world right now, and a guy from the region, and a guy from the gym that's produced your featherweight and middleweight champions. No, prelims for you, sir. We must have Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Yan Xiaonan in one of your top 3 fights. Piss off with this. I'll yell about that more on Sunday, I guess. Oh God, I don't know.
I feel like MMA has finally. I feel like MMA has finally broken you.
It's also late, and I've been depressed lately, so I'm looking. So this is a little manic.
Okay.
We'll be talking again. We'll be previewing that whole card, reviewing the one that takes place, talking about news like BJ Penn being involved in an alleged DUI and flipping his car. I really, really hate that there's a bunch of jackasses out there who, when I said after Penn's last couple of fights, this man shouldn't be fighting, period, were like, no, he won a round against Clay Guida. He looked good in that round. Like, no, you bunch of idiots. This is not a man who should be fighting. It took him getting knocked out via recording in a drunken street fight in Hawaii for the UFC to finally cut him. Even Bellator isn't touching this pile of radioactive material at this point. Now he's been in a serious accident, probably caused by nothing but him being intoxicated in one form or another. We're about 2 steps away from a serious tragedy. But all you sycophantic mouth breathers wanted to give me shit. Shame on all of you.
You got shit for that?
For saying that he shouldn't fight anymore, that he should not be... I said BJ Penn should not be sanctioned to fight.
Uh-huh.
And I got crap.
Wow.
Yeah, again, sycophantic mouth breathers with no concept of how badly things go for fighters who hang around too long and who have absorbed the kind of damage that Penn has. And again, you bunch of idiots, this kills people. Not a joke. BJ Penn is in a position where he needs serious help.
You feel better now?
No, because the overlap between the people who need to hear that and the people who are listening to this going, geez, man. Probably not a whole lot of crossover there.
Fair enough.
So, again, you can hear me and Jeff Harris probably talk about that a little bit more on Sunday. And again, whatever other news came out this week. I think a few fights have been made, some dates announced. We'll go over all of it. And this coming, let me see, this Monday we're recording source material for the first volume of Lock and Key.
Yeah, you guys are. I'm dropping out of that.
Ah, come on.
There's too many of us.
How many are there for that?
There's like 4 of you all together if everyone shows up.
Okay, come on.
What?
I mean this in all seriousness. That'll wind up being you, me, and Jesse.
No, Alexis wants to be on there. I believe Chris Armstrong. I almost forgot his name. It's late. I'm so tired. Chris Armstrong, I think, is going to be on there. So then there's you, and then there's Jesse. That's too many. That's just the right amount of people.
Okay. Can you at least be prepared to sub in when 1 or 2 of them fall out?
Absolutely.
And again, we will only be talking about the first volume, which depresses me. I'd rather talk about the thing in its entirety. This is all to.
Did you think this podcast was going to be?
I don't know. We'll see how long it's.
Are you new to this?
I've done a couple of source materials, not too many. And in fairness, the ones I'm on tend to go long.
Yeah. I just, again, I think having just been on a podcast where we had 4 people and it went 3 hours completely unnecessarily, much past 4 people and...
No, okay, sorry. You're I said I want to talk about the entire run of the graphic novel, not just the first volume.
You're right. No, I get what you're saying. I'm just 4
Don't
people.
worry. Yeah, I get it. And again, I fully anticipate at least 1 to 2 of them dropping out. Not a knock on those people. Just life's busy, and flights get overbooked for a reason.
I'm off Monday, and other than watching Green Eggs and Ham with my kids, I will make sure I read the book in case I am needed, and I will let Jesse know to tag me in if Chris Armstrong or Alexis does not make it. Okay?
Thank you. So
don't ever say I never did nothing for you.
You do very little for me.
What's the matter, big boy? I'm not your type?
Well, that too. So we'll be talking about that. Lock and Key. If you haven't read the graphic novel, do it. It is absolutely a magnificent piece of work. That is to kind of dovetail into coming up in the nearish future, our review of the Netflix adaptation of that material, Lock and Key, which, I might have to get angry at this one.
Oh, okay. So next week's going to be next Tuesday. A week from this Tuesday coming up is going to be a lot of fun. Cool.
This coming Thursday on Damn You Hollywood, we will be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Do 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 do.
What was that?
What was the Sonic the Hedgehog theme?
Okay.
Do 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 do.
Is that the theme they use in the movie?
Finish your plugs.
Because I don't know, that does not sound familiar to me. And Sonic, I mean, in fairness, Sonic as a property has had several different, television adaptations, and out of all the potential, like even stage themes you could have picked out to go on with,
it's the one I remember.
All right, fair enough. So you can look forward to Mark and I talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, which should be a fun discussion, if nothing else. And I think that's it for me. I might be tagging into the boxing event in 2 weeks. That's Fury and Wilder 2.
Yep, week from Saturday.
If my stuff gets done in time, I might be available for that. And if you want to do a 4-man booth for it,
yeah, that's fine. For that, having you, me, John, and Pat would be fine.
Pat and I can complain about everything. You and John can be relentlessly optimistic, and we'll draw battle lines. It'll be great.
Yes, it'll be the world's worst chicken fight. All right, folks.
That's about right.
Thank you for joining us on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network alternative commentary for Ryan Garcia and Francisco Fonseca and Thomas Mattice versus Isaac Cruz, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they called it. Be well, be safe, and behave.